All right.
Progress in progress.
Yay.
Oh my God.
Ready whenever you are.
Yas, babe. Yas, yas. I think I'm ready. I think I'm ready. Do you know what time it is?
It's tin hat time.
Tin hat time. Tin hat time. Fuck
Yeah.
yeah, you guys.
Yeah.
Ooh. Um, boy howdy, am I excited to talk about this shit today.
Yeah.
Uh,
It'll be a good one.
yeah. I'm going to tell you, I told you earlier, but this time for the audience, is that when I told my dad what we were covering this week, I was like, Dad, by the way, hi, Daddy, biggest fan.
Number one.
Number one. Yeah, I was like, Daddy, guess what we're going to do next week on Tin Hat Time? And he was like, what are you going to do? And I was like, we're going to talk about vampires. And I could feel his eye roll from North Carolina. He was like Buffy.
Oh, the worst show.
It's not the worst show. Stop it.
I'll make
Stop
that
bringing
joke.
it up.
I'll,
Don't bring it up
I'll do
on.
it every time.
No, you're incorrect. Although, yeah. I think Nick agrees with you though that Angel's the better show, which is just such
It is.
bullshit. It's
Angel
not.
Angel is totally a better show.
No, it isn't,
So
and that's not the point. The point is that I ruined my dad. That poor man
yeah.
knows Buffy the Vampire Slayer off the top of his head, and probably knows about Angel a good bit too. Bless his heart. Anyway, so yeah, but we're not going to be talking about the Buffy type of vampires or the sparkly type or the vampires that live in the French Quarter of New Orleans. We're going to talk about real vampires, you guys. Real shit.
Oh. I'm
Yeah.
I'm
So like,
intrigued.
so it's interesting because vampires, there's a concept of some sort of a blood-sucking fiend in every single culture in the world. Everyone has one. In Romania, they have the strega or striga, which is a combo kind of a creature of like a witch vampire,
Mm.
um, which is interesting and delightful. There's going to be a lot of creatures that are really just ladies who are looking to be empowered, which is a little bit frustrating.
Yeah, it's kind of a trend throughout history.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it is. It sure is. That if she likes to fuck,
yeah.
she's the goddamn devil.
Yeah. Don't worry.
And
Jesus will save her.
trying to seduce you away from, I don't know. I don't even know.
Independence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So in China, they have this zombie kind of creature called a jian. I had it.
You
Stand by.
did. You did have it.
A jiangshi. Jiangshi.
Okay.
And so Jiangshi is kind of like a vampire zombie. So in ancient Chinese culture and possibly modern Chinese culture, I feel like it's a pretty common worldwide thing, is that people prefer to be buried in their hometown.
Mm.
Um, and to the point that like if somebody died abroad or away from home, if their family could not afford to hire like a cart and like a proper like grave person, I don't know what the term would be.
Burial. I don't know.
No, a corpse
Morgue.
transportation. Like if they
Uh,
couldn't bring that
there's probably a name for it.
a hearse
A
kind of a deal.
hearse.
To
Sure.
hire a hearse, if you will, to bring the corpse from the death spot back home, then they could hire a sorcerer. And the sorcerer would go to the corpse that had been buried and write its name, its birthday, where it came from, and like all sorts of stuff on this little piece of parchment and slap it onto the corpse's head. And then the corpse would become reanimated and it would have to listen to the sorcerer. And so the sorcerer would say, all right, listen, and he'd usually have like 4 or 5 jiangshis, with him. And he'd just, like, all right, guys, come on, this way.
It's
And
like
like they would hop
herding
behind him,
zombie kettles.
basically to
Yeah.
bring them back to their home where they could be de-animated and buried. But
Weird.
if like you didn't, if somehow if that scrap of parchment came
Mm-hmm.
off of the Jiangshi's head, whether like you didn't pay the sorcerer and he's like, all right, then fuck you guys, boink, then that corpse stays reanimated, but it like is no longer under the thrall of the sorcerer, so it doesn't have to listen to shit he says anymore, basically. And it goes all zombie revenant rampage all over it.
Dang, that's interesting. It's kind of
Yeah.
like reminiscent of like the golem, right? Where it's like there's usually a parchment in their mouth,
Oh, the
right?
golem.
Yeah, golem. Um,
It's not Gollum. That's from the Lord of the Rings. You're
that's how I
referring to
read
a
it.
golem.
Um, sure,
Spell
the the golem, right? But it's like there's a piece of parchment in their mouth, and when it's removed or whatever, they can go crazy, sort of a
Yeah,
thing. Like interesting. Like I wonder if there's any relation there,
I don't know. Possibly. I know that the
like
written
way
word.
back. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that the written word, and like putting like a spell on an amulet, that kind of thing, is used in protection against vampires. But we'll get to that later.
Okay.
So in South America, there's this creepy fucking thing called an ab, AB, and an ab is a floating torso head of
Oh,
like a lady who's like all disembodied with her intestines hanging out. And she likes to float around. Sometimes these abs, like, they look like regular people during the day, but they always have like a stern. Like they're women, obviously. Once again, it's a
always.
woman.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie
And she
though.
looks
I
like,
was I was worried that I had abs, but luckily I don't have any.
no, no. You're
Mom
such a
jokes.
fucking dork. You're such a dork. Oh my God. Painful dorky.
Uh,
Painfully dorky. Um, so yeah, there's the so she goes to bed at night and she she segmentates herself.
okay.
So it's just like her arms, her tits, and her head and shoulders, like tits up kind of a thing, floating around out there in the
Mhm.
night. And she's
Naturally.
looking to bone.
Of course she is.
She's
Of
also
course.
looking for your lungs. She's looking for your liver. She would love some of that sweet, sweet lifeblood that you have. She'd
Ooh.
also love to hang over you and drip her intestines all over your body and like breathe your life force out through your
Mm.
body.
Yeah. Sexy.
Yeah, she wants to do that badly. Sometimes these creatures are married and their husbands are afraid of them.
Oh, like
So if
they
you know
were
a man,
people or
no,
they
like during the daytime, they look like regular people. And then at night, they
Oh.
go and segment themselves off and are like,
Oh, so
in
nobody
the
would
night
know
sky.
then.
Right. But a way that you could tell if somebody is an ab is if a husband is afraid of his wife and she's too stern.
Okay.
Could be that she's an ab.
I don't know, Dan does call me the warden, so maybe I
I was just
secretly
about
am
to say,
one.
like, are you flying around at night
I don't think he's
looking
afraid
for
of me
dick
though.
and livers? No, he's definitely not afraid of you. Nobody with a
But he
brain is
should
afraid of
be.
you.
Just
Okay, that's okay. Okay, Duluth. Remember that time that we
just kidding.
wrestled and I
Uh,
like immediately almost broke your arm and we were
no,
just playing?
no, I know. We actually, Dan and I had a conversation the other day about like what's a sport that I could potentially beat him at, and he was like, nothing, literally nothing. I was like,
None.
running,
Not
like,
even golf.
so I think running, but he's like, that's not a sport. That's not what we're
Okay.
talking about.
No, I don't think you could beat him taking a jog either. I've jogged with you.
Yeah. No, with him I could. I could. That's the only surefire one that I know.
Yeah.
But it's not a sport, he says, a technical
No,
sport.
I mean, if you're running track, that's a sport.
That's what I said.
But
And
I
he
don't
goes,
think
"Yeah, but
going
there's
for a
more."
jog counts as a sport.
I guess see, and that's what I would mean. He said like track includes like javelin
And throwing
and like high jump and long jump
javelins
and
and like running,
yeah.
sprinting for like 100 yards, dashing,
Yeah.
um, maybe doing one of those pass the baton things.
So,
But also in back to vampires.
yeah, back to
Or
vampires. Anywho.
anywho, um, in some Native American cultures, there is the Wendigo. They're usually up north in kind of like the Maine to like Michigan, kind of like Canada
Okay.
border, that area. I'm not sure what all tribes are there, or Native American groups, but the
A
Wendigo,
large amount. Yeah, that's a
a
lot of
a
different.
lot of them, a
Yeah.
lot. Um,
More than two or three. So to
Absolutely.
remember.
And I think that from what I was reading, the Wendigo kind of like shows up everywhere in that area. So like it was passed from like word of mouth probably down in just in that region. And so the Wendigo is what happens when a human engages in cannibalism. They become like this creepy ghoul-like creature that like stalks among the trees, and it's gonna fucking get you.
Yeah.
Like, 'cause once you've tasted that forbidden fruit of sweet, sweet man flesh, that's
Supposedly
all you
tastes like
want.
pork.
Yeah, that's why they call people long pig. Just
Yuck.
delicious long pig. I feel like we're probably a little bit too polluted for all that shit these days.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know, but probably all the
Yeah,
pigs are too, so.
right. So that was one of the oh, and from Judeo-Christian religions, we have Lilith,
Oh,
who is the
yes.
mother of demons. Yeah. She's pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
She was allegedly Adam's first wife, but she wasn't gonna be submissive to nobody. She
Yeah.
wasn't gonna be no one subordinate. So God said, "Get the fuck up out of the Garden of Eden." And she said, "I'm gonna then. You know what? I'm gonna go and I'm gonna have a great fucking time. And I'm not gonna listen to you, Adam." And then Eve showed up and she was like, "I low-key agree.
Everything you say.
He sucks."
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to know a fun fact about
Uh,
Lilith that I don't know if you know? Maybe you
what?
do. So supposedly they say in that lore um, that the reason that Lilith gets expelled is because she wanted to get on top during sex, which also that doesn't seem who wants to do that.
Well, you have to
Um,
stay on the bottom if you're the woman. How else
yeah,
will you know
yeah.
where you
So
belong?
that was like part of like her wanting to be like basically an equal. So because Lilith was also made out of the earth, whereas
Yeah, she
Eve was
wasn't made
pulled.
out of Adam's rib, which is what Eve was made out of.
Yeah. So technically Lilith and Adam were on equal footing.
Yeah.
And that was nope.
Nope, nope, nope. That is a
Stay in your
dangerous
place, woman.
idea.
Yeah.
Stay in your place. Get barefoot. Get pregnant. Get in that
Yeah.
kitchen. That's
Yeah.
where we belong.
Yeah.
Um, so Lilith and her cohorts were just like, "This is bullshit. Bullshit. You know what? I'm gonna go be the mother of demons out here in the wilderness." And in mostly in the like early Jewish faith, like
Mm-hmm.
in the before Christianity times, um, Lilith was associated with death and childbirth. She was associated with child death, like cradle fatalities, that sort of a thing. If you let what's it, preeclampsia,
Yeah.
where you just bleed out, that was Lilith's doing.
Yeah,
That's and she was
your blood turns toxic.
yeah.
Literally turns toxic. So
That's so terrifying. I'm never gonna have a
yeah.
baby.
Yeah. There's a lot of shit that can go wrong. It's
Yeah.
I mean, back then though, it was like it could potentially be
Oh
a
my
death
God.
sentence. So
Everything, getting
until like
pregnant,
100 years ago, and even sometimes then, I mean,
getting
it's
pregnant now can be a fucking death sentence if
correct.
you're not
Men, are you
middle
listening?
class or above and white.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. So isn't fun, lighthearted topic.
Oh
Anywho.
my God, I love it. Anyway, so vampirism is sexist as fuck. And
Yeah.
mostly it's dudes being irritated at or trying to like push all of the something bad happened. It was a devil woman.
Yeah.
They're
It's,
trying to seduce us.
yeah. Those
Look
whispering
at her with her.
eyes.
Look at her with those sexy whatevers.
Yeah.
Burn her. She's too
Yeah.
sexy.
Yeah. She's too pretty. She must be a witch. So.
Yeah, it's like the entire plot of we watched The Hunchback of Notre Dame the other day, the Disney one. It
Oh yeah. I
was
started
so good.
to, and then I
So good.
stopped. It
Oh,
bums me the
I,
fuck out.
it's such a fucking bummer, and like all of Quasimodo's songs like just make me cry. But it's my new go-to karaoke Disney song though.
Also, I don't
But the whole
understand
plot
how
of
it's an
that movie,
appropriate child's movie.
how was that? We were watching it and just being like, I'm sorry, this came out in
Wild,
1996. This was
wildly
rated G.
inappropriate.
I was 8 years old when I went to the movie theater to see that, and just like the Hellfire song and like
Yeah,
anyway,
that's the one that I was thinking of. Yeah,
yeah,
the like deacon one or whatever, where he's
that
talking about his
he's
sexual urges.
Frollo the judge and how he wants her. Yeah, the whole plot or like the whole conflict in that movie is everyone wants to fuck Esmeralda.
Yeah,
Esmeralda just wants to be her own person
yeah,
and make some money and like do her own thing. She'd rather if you didn't sniff her hair, creepy dude.
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah. And then then that guy Frollo just like, have you ever been so horny you burned Paris to the ground? Because
Woof.
that's the whole plot of fucking Hunchback of Notre Dame. You ever been so horny you burned Paris to the ground?
Oh, that's the new
Frollo
quote.
has.
Quote of the
Yeah,
day.
right. Isn't that great? Um, but yeah, so mostly it seems like fear of women's sexuality or like being their own thing. Because like a lot of ways to become a vampire is like a lot of witchcraft, a lot of
Mhm.
like evil old women or like women who are just like on the the witchy type women,
Yeah.
cursing you or something like that. So let's go into it's just vampires are sex, it's just fun,
Yeah.
which is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So ways to protect yourselves against these slutty vampire ladies. Garlic.
Mm.
Obviously, it's the first write off. Everybody knows garlic. It's really fun to me that garlic actually has like natural antiseptic, antibacterial, antifungal properties. So it's a if you were sick and you because like back in the day, if you're sick, you have a bad spirit in you.
Yeah.
Shove that garlic down your throat and it gets rid of the bad spirit. But what the bad spirit was a germ.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, sometimes maybe it's an evil spirit. We've talked about some demonic possession cases that seem really um,
Yeah, but like
feasible.
most of the time it's just an illness,
Yeah,
whether it's
most of the
physical or
time
mental.
it's an illness. So silver is also another thing that will protect you from demons because of its purity. A lot of the things
Hmm.
that protect you from vampires are the same things that protect you from demons.
Yeah, there's a lot
And
of
it all comes,
crossover.
yeah, it's there's a lot of crossover. There's a lot until fairly recently, vampires were just demons. Like demons and vampires were just the same thing.
Yeah.
It's been a little bit more pop culture, like to make a vampire its own thing because it was just a blood drinking demon
Yeah.
or demon. There's not a
Yeah.
D on it. Pig's bones formed into a cross and like put under the doorway of a church on Easter Sunday after everybody was in the church. The strega or a witch vampire wouldn't be able to exit the church, so that's a good way to capture and kill all of the women in your village. Um,
Yeah. That
if
sure
you need to
is.
do that because the crops failed and you're horny, and God
Burn it
said you're not
down.
supposed to be, burn them down. But yeah, so crosses, exhuming the corpse of the suspected vampire and just basically defiling it in a bunch of neat and interesting ways. Ramming an iron stake through the heart of the dead corpse, usually decapitating the corpse, sometimes burning the corpse, especially if that corpse looks like it's still fresh and rosy,
Hmm.
or like if its nails have been growing and its hair has been growing. That's called decomposition. We know
Yes.
that now.
Yeah.
Um, the color red will protect you from vampires. Also, the color white will protect you from a vampiric attack. Wild roses formed into a cross or just like into like a circle kind of a
Hmm.
deal or just like waving branches of wild roses. Um, Mirrors can help keep them at bay because demons and ghosts and ghouly things are do not care for mirrors because they can become trapped in them.
Hmm.
This is common knowledge, I feel.
Yeah. I think I
Yeah.
for the most part. I mean, like each
And
lore I
also
feel like is slightly different.
dumping out a bunch of rice or beans or lentils or something like that, because if you cast a bunch of those sorts of things, grains of sand out, then the vampire will have to stop and count all of them.
Oh, is that's
That's
over
vampire.
that's vampires?
Yeah.
I don't know why. Oh, Supernatural made me think of the leprechaun who has to count
It's a lot of fey creatures
is it?
that will have to do that, but
Is that a thing in Fae stuff too? I
that's
never
something
know
that
if
crosses over in a lot of different cultures actually,
hmm.
is the dumping out of like because there it's a Chinese tradition, it is a Transylvanian, like Slavic kind of a tradition. It's things that are found in the Americas. Um, it's stuff that's found in Iceland. Like that's kind of like all over the place. Is if you dump out like a whole thing of salt, or if you dump out all your rice, or your lentils or whatever, then most demons or vampires or whatever will have to stop and count all of those. And then if the sun comes up, they either die or turn to stone.
Interesting.
So that's
Interesting.
helpful. to know,
Yes.
so you just keep some pocket sand.
Yeah. So that's why you should always spill the beans.
God, I want to hang up on you. Oh my God.
I've been holding it in since you brought up beans.
No,
I'm so sorry.
you're not. And that's the problem, Megan, is you're not sorry. You're not sorry at all. You're just doing this shit.
It's a good joke.
Oh, okay. So there's a lot of different ways that you can become a vampire before or after you die. If after you die, if a cat jumps over your body, boom, vampire. If you are a witch in your life, you're almost certainly going to be a vampire in your death.
Because
If you
demons.
die, what?
Because demons, right?
Yeah,
That's
and yeah. If you die before you can give your last confession, and therefore you die with a burdened soul, you could become a vampire. If you commit suicide, vampire.
mm,
If you are an unwed mother who dies in childbirth, vampire.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So vampires. Some ways to identify them. Like I said, if you exhume the body of a suspected vampire, they will be rosy and they will look alive. You got to stake that heart. You got to bury that body. You got to flip it upside down, and like that's a way to prevent a loved one from becoming a vampire, is to bury them face down in their grave with a sickle and a scythe, um, or some silver with them. That'll protect them from it. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So now that we've kind of gone over what a vampire in folklore and mythology and like cultures looks like,
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about some real life actual cases of like historical accounts, and frighteningly recent accounts of true life vampirism.
Yes. I'm
Shit that
ready.
made it in the news. Yeah. So travel with me, if you will, Megan and dear listeners, back to how do you fucking say that? Oh, I can't read my own handwriting. Stand by. Exeter, Rhode Island. The year
Okay.
is 1892. Again, far too recently. Far too recently in history for this shit.
Did you say 1982? 92.
1892.
1892. Okay.
1892.
Got it.
100 years before you were born.
Yep.
And this was part of the New England vampire panic.
Okay.
So, in Exeter, I keep trying to say executor, and I
You
think
could
that's a
just say
Brooklyn.
Rhode Island. It's like the size of a county in like every other state.
I know, that's why it's important to specify which part of this tiny little piece of shit state it is. No offense, Rhode Island. Just be bigger, I don't know. Um, so
That's what
there's
she
two
said.
people sometimes.
I got jokes. I'm sorry.
You're such a pain in the ass. I love you so much.
I'm really putting you off track each time. I
You
know.
really are, like, your terrible, terrible jokes are just making me stop and be like,
Uh,
you're driving me to drink.
yeah. What is that? Grape soda?
It is a Melvin back into hazy IPA. It's very good. It does look like a grape soda. I could probably drink this on the street.
Probably.
Um, but that would be illegal, and I don't do illegal things.
It depends on where you're at. You can do it in certain parts of Montana.
Yeah, Montana's the Wild West. So we're
It really
gonna
is.
go back to Rhode Island again.
Yes, let's go to Rhode Island. Okay.
Rhode Island, 1892. So the Brown family lives in Exeter, Rhode Island. And two of the people of the Brown family, the matriarch, aka mother, and the eldest daughter, Mary Elizabeth and Mary Olive, both died of consumption, which everybody and their fucking mother died of in that time period.
Yeah.
Consumption, we now call it tuberculosis. It's a horrible wasting disease that basically makes you just cough your innards out and you
Yeah.
just cough yourself to death. It's truly atrocious. So in in 1891, that was when Mary Elizabeth and Mary Olive died, and George Brown was the father of the family, and his two remaining children, Mercy and Edwin, both contract consumption. Mercy is 19 and Edwin's in his early 20s. And there's some gossip around the town that there's a vampire demon spirit that is attacking Exeter and specifically the Brown family. And then that's what's causing their crazy misfortune.
Okay.
Because like there was the consumption bit, there was also like some crop failures that happened, there was some bad like business dealings that went south. Like people were concerned that this family was cursed or being attacked by a demon.
Okay.
Or vampire wasn't really like a term that was used in those days.
Okay.
um but because it's I think this was after, obviously this is after like Dracula had been written and stuff like that, but it wasn't a widely used term
Yeah.
yet. um so like a spirit, a demon most likely is what everybody was kind of saying. So um after after Mercy Brown, his youngest daughter and only remaining daughter, dies in January of 92, some friends and like locals, like a couple of people like from the community, come over to George Brown's house and they sit him down and they're like, listen up, homeboy, like we've seen this shit before. You have a demon and it's attacking your family. And George and his friend, the doctor, there, and they're like, okay,
Yeah.
all right. And he's like, listen, I'm a Lutheran, I believe, but what if you fuck off? And the guy's like, no, you need to listen to me. This
Yeah.
happened to my family. Everybody in my fucking family died because this demon came out, and I wish I had done this sooner. There's something you can do. There are steps you can take. And
Was
George is
the
like,
was
okay.
the son still alive at that point?
Yes, so Edwin's still alive and he's in the deathly grips of consumption. His young wife is like, we need to do whatever we can to save him. George is looking at his sole remaining family member, his heir, his only son,
Mhm.
and is just like distraught. He's getting worse. He's just getting worse. They thought that he had gotten was going to get better for a little while, and then Mercy died, and then Edwin got really fucking sick right after Mercy died. And so the community member and like the other farmer guy was just like, it's Mercy. Mercy is attacking him. She has it now. She was the last one to die of it,
Yeah.
and now she's given it to him. And the father, George, was just like, okay, all right, okay, all right. And he was like, well, I don't want my son to die. Like they have like a little family meeting with George and his daughter-in-law, and they're like, we don't want Edwin to die. Like, I would feel horrible if, like, he's like, I don't know if I believe in this, but like, we have to try something. We have to try. So they had to figure out which of the three deceased brown women was the vampire. So they
Because only
exhumed
the
all.
women. Yeah.
Well, they were the ones who had died. So like, if
Oh, I
Edwin
thought.
had died before Mercy,
Oh, I thought there
then
was a boy that died. Maybe I just misheard.
no, I think I said his only son, his only remaining
Oh,
child,
okay.
because he had the two daughters, Mary, Mercy, and then Mary Olive was the eldest, then Edwin, and then Mercy.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was his only son,
Okay. Got
but
it.
also like his only remaining child.
Okay.
Um, and like the feeling that I got from the story is that like if Edwin had died and Mercy had been the one who was alive, he would have done this for her as well.
Okay.
Like it's just like his last, like his
Yeah,
child.
the
He
last
doesn't
one.
want to. Yeah, he
Yeah.
doesn't want to watch his entire family fucking die. If
Yeah.
there's something he could do about it. Um, and so in this case, it's just incidental that it was women.
Okay.
Um, so he exhumes his wife. She's been dead for like almost a year, and she is properly rotted. Um, yeah. So he digs up his daughter next, his eldest daughter. She is also putrefied appropriately.
Yuck.
And then they get to to Mercy. And so they dig up Mercy, and she's been dead for about a month at this point. So you would expect some putrefaction to have happened.
Yeah.
but her cheeks are rosy and lively and full.
Oh.
Her body is not sunken in. There is no noticeable decay. She doesn't smell putrid. She doesn't like stink at all. Like
Hmm.
she has not decomposed.
Yeah, a month in, she should have had something going on.
She should be pretty rotten at
Yeah.
that point. Um, you would think. But and so the guy's just like, well, this is bad. So she's the demon. So they cut out her heart, and there was still blood in her heart, like liquid blood, like it hadn't congealed, it hadn't like done the thing. So they take her heart and her liver and they burn them to ashes. And then they take those ashes and they make a tonic and they mix it up into some teas and they take it upstairs and they tell Edwin, hey, you've got to drink your dead sister's heart and liver ashes now. And he's like, I don't want to. They're like, do you want to fucking die, Edwin? Drink it, bitch.
Uh,
I'm sure they were a little bit more gentle with him than that.
yeah, just a little
But
forced
basically,
cannibalism.
kind of,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So he drinks the tonic made of his sister's heart and liver, the ashes of those,
Hmm.
and then 2 months later he dies of consumption.
Yeah, because that's not how
Yeah,
medicine
because
works.
that's not how you cure consumption.
Yeah.
I literally wrote that. I
Yeah.
like Edwin dies anyway because that's not how you cure consumption.
Yeah. That's. uh,
That's that. So in modern times, we can look back at that story and see the foolishness for what it is. There was a lot more superstition in that day and area, and especially um in that area, which
yeah.
was very rural, very secluded, very low population, that sort of stuff. Very, very religious.
Yeah.
And when you have places that are that deeply religious, they tend to get very superstitious. Also, she died in January in Rhode Island.
Yeah, I
There's
feel
a
like
good chance that, and
she was just preserved.
they hadn't buried her yet because the ground was too hard. I left this off for the end because it's
Yeah.
more fun to throw in the debunk at the end of it.
Yeah.
But they had stored her body in the barn until the frost had come so they could bury her. So it was most likely that she had been kept preserved by the cold. It was like they basically put her in a freezer.
Yeah.
But
I was kind of
yeah,
wondering that, like what time it was,
it was
or
January.
if it
Like if
was
it had been
cold,
August and this happened,
Yeah.
fucking vampire.
Yeah.
So I have a couple more things to talk to you about today.
Hang on, can I just say, didn't they make a movie about that? I could swear that it's like a movie with like the dude from Grimm was the dad. You don't know?
Are you thinking of The Haunting in Connecticut?
No, like the story that you just told me sounds
Oh,
exactly like the plot of a movie that
crap.
I watched not too long ago, and it was,
Oh shit.
but they
Um,
made it more
I
like spooky, like that she was a demon and that she did haunt
Well,
them
yeah,
or some
obviously.
shit.
If you're gonna tell the story, you've got to make her an actual vampire. You can't just make it the
Yeah.
sad, sad story of a man desperately trying to cure a disease for which there was no cure at the time.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's like the dude from um Grimm, the main guy. You know what I'm talking about?
No,
Do you know the show Grimm?
no. It
So
looked dumb.
you're not totally wrong.
I know.
Um, I tried with that show. It had so much
Yeah,
stuff that I wanted, but
I
it was
decided to
too
go for
family friendly.
Supernatural instead.
Yeah.
Exactly, and I like Supernatural.
Yeah.
Um,
Anywho, go on.
okay,
Sorry.
so let's tell another tale of vampires in the news and in the media and in the real world. This one takes place in England in the 1960s and 70s.
Ooh.
And I'm going to tell you guys about the Highgate Cemetery vampire hunters, or the Highgate vampire. So there was this bizarre rivalry in the 60s and 70s, which was also way too recent. Like,
Yeah.
what? Like, it's insane to me that this, like, dude, the 70s, man.
I'm literally just imagining like the Scooby Doo van, but like in England. Like, you know.
Just you wait, Henry Higgins. Just you wait. So so around the Highgate Cemetery and this vampire, there was this crazy rivalry between David Farrant and Sean Manchester. Both of these men deeply believed, that a vampire haunted and hunted the grounds of the Highgate Cemetery and like the surrounding areas. And like Highgate Cemetery was known to be haunted. There were sites of like, you heard disembodied voices and ghostly bells and like an evil face peering through the bars of the cemetery gates. Ah, that kind
Oh,
of, your
I
nice
love it.
traditional woman in white patrolling the area, a man with a top hat, kind of, the
Yeah.
ghost inspectors that you would
Like someone
expect
with a
and look.
lantern walking
Yeah,
through, but like
absolutely.
then just
All the
disappearing into the mist.
Yes, all the usual suspects for a cemetery.
Yeah.
But these two guys were just like, it's a vampire. It's a fucking vampire. So Farron thought of it more as like a psychic vampire spirit that was like attaching itself to people and like draining them of their energy, not like a vampire. And Manchester was like ready to fight the literal devil, like the literal devil. He was like, he's in there. I'm gonna fucking get him. And Manchester announced that he was going to do an exorcism on Highgate Cemetery on Friday the 13th in March of 1970, because when else would you do it, right?
Makes the
Uh,
most sense. That or
why?
Halloween night. So, I mean,
Yeah, exactly. And I think that the people were like, no, you may not come into the cemetery on Halloween. Thank you. Fuck off.
mhm.
Which was wise, because 2 hours later, after he announced that he was going to do this exorcism that night, there was a mob of people, a pitchfork and torch wielding mob of commoners showed up at the fucking cemetery to be like, get the vampire. Ah!
Oh,
Uh, I think that they had their, villager ancestors that were in them. Were just like, man, it's been a long time since our people have crowded at a place with pitchforks
yeah.
and shouted, burn it. So let's do that tonight. What do you guys think? You doing anything tonight? Let's do it.
Very
Um,
traditional.
yes. And so they overran the cemetery, and a bunch of them got arrested for being dicks, basically. Um, and in August of 1970, a woman's headless, burned, and impaled body was found near the catacombs. And people were like, like, because they had treated the body like they would treat a vampire.
Yeah.
And it was at first immediately treated as a murder scene.
Yeah.
Um, but the body was from the Victorian times. So she had been exhumed, beheaded, and defiled, and then burned, and then like left there. And Manchester and Farrant were both like, it wasn't me. I didn't do that. That was Satanists. The
Yeah.
Satanists did it.
When in doubt,
Um,
it's definitely the Satanists or women.
Especially in the 70s. In the
Yeah.
70s and the 80s, if something weird happened, it was the Satanists.
Yeah, satanic panic.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Yep.
Oh.
Um, so Farrant was arrested one time when he was caught skulking about with a crucifix and a wooden stake, but it was dismissed. And Manchester broke into a vault one time with some of his cohorts, and he broke into the vault, he exhumed the body, he got it all out and stuff, and he was just about to stab it when his buddy was like, Sean, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What the fuck are we doing here, dude? Like, this is illegal. Like,
Yeah.
please stop. Like, it's gone too far.
You're just
It's
defiling
gone too
bodies
far.
and corpses.
Yeah, exactly. And the boys challenged each other to a magician's duel in 1973, but neither of them showed up.
I challenge you to a duel.
Yeah, you can have a magician's duel. Fuck you. I'm the real vampire hunter.
This sounds like
Oh,
reminiscent of like the Aleister Crowley and like the guy that he would duel with.
yeah,
Like that.
yeah.
We should do an episode on that. But like, yeah.
It's very similar to like high level nerd. Like, oh, it's
It's nerdy. That's
It's
nerd.
the
That's some
nerdiest
nerd shit.
bullshit. I'm like, I play Dungeons and Dragons, and I can get down with the get down of being like a fucking nerd about things, but like, I challenge you to a magician's
Just
duel.
like,
Oh,
ugh.
yeah.
And
And
this.
then neither of them showed up. Like, people showed up to be like, the magician's duel is happening. It's happening on Friday the 13th, like another Friday the 13th. And they're like, fuck yeah, the magicians. And then they just stayed at home. They were like, oh, I didn't. Don't you have something to do today, Sean? No, I don't know what you're talking about. It's just a regular Friday for me. Just gonna hang out here and pretend to be descended from Van Helsing some more.
Oh man.
But Ferret was arrested and imprisoned. He was there was some corpse defilement and grave disturbance, and he had to go to jail for a little while, even though he said it was not him, it was the Satanists, and he was there trying to put an end to it. They're like, you were there, you've been there so many times, dude, you have to leave Highgate the fuck alone.
Yeah, we know it's you.
Yeah, like, come on, man, come on, like, if it's not you, like, you're making dipshits come down here.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently they do not like it when you go on the tour of the Highgate Cemetery and ask where the vampire tomb is.
Yeah.
They go, you can leave now, you fucking American twat. Get.
I want to
Um,
do that now.
I want to do it so badly. Like, if I find out that somebody's not into their weird haunted history, they're like, no, we'd rather not talk about that. No, thank you. No, 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 that's a blight on our history. Fucking Anne Boleyn or whoever is buried over here. Come pay attention to that. Famous person buried here. It's like, no, I want to know where the magician's duel is gonna happen.
I think
Where
that's
was
what
that?
Europeans think that Americans sound like, though. At
Like a
least that's what
Muppet?
I imagine. Yeah, like the Muppet voice, which is hands down, chef's
Ah,
kiss, my favorite voice.
ah, I'm gonna fight you with my magic. Ah! Um, but so David, I think I forgot to look up. Sean Manchester, I believe, is still alive. David Farrant passed in April of 2019, and Sean Manchester was all kind of like, he was kind of sad about it. Like, they had nothing but vitriol and like bullshit to say about each other while they were alive. Each of them wrote a book
Nemesis. Oh,
basically calling the other a stupid cockhead.
really?
Yeah,
God, that is amazing.
yeah, where they were like, I was the one who solved the Highgate vampire bullshit. I know what happened there. Other homeboy, he knows nothing. He can go fuck himself forever. He didn't show up to that duel that I didn't show up to. Um, yeah.
uh,
And then when David Farrant passed away, it was like Sean Manchester was kind of sad. He was like, oh,
yeah,
now who I like, is the
arch,
great
arch,
rivalry.
yeah,
It died. It went
yeah.
away, and he was kind of like, oh, well, fuck, I guess. And then yeah, I wanted to talk about some serial killers who have been labeled vampires.
Is
Because they're
Sacramento
not.
gonna be in it?
Buckle up, bitch.
It's always Sacramento.
Buckle up. Sacramento is always there. That's where all the murderers really they really do some good stuff there. So I wanted to talk about, first of all, Albert Fish.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's dark.
We are gonna very, very lightly brush over Albert Fish, who was called the Werewolf of Wisteria, the Boogeyman, and the Vampire of something or other. Um, so he was a cannibal, a very sadistic cannibal who ate children.
Yeah.
That was his deal. He molested and then ate. He claimed over 100 children. Like, they have no idea. This was like in the 1910s and 20s, like when people just like trusted old white men. Although if you've ever seen a picture of him, I don't recommend it. He creepy as fuck. He looks like if your grandfather didn't have a soul and wanted to eat you.
Yeah. Hmm.
And yeah, he was a crazy sadist. What? Oh, when he was executed, he according to allegedly, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, he stuck a bunch of needles into his penis, so it took extra long to electrocute him because he had a bunch of needles.
Oh, yeah. I heard about,
stuck
yeah.
in
Yeah.
Yeah, he was really into it. He was like, "This will be the greatest erotic thrill of my life, and then I'll die."
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
He's a really messed up guy.
He was really, really. I think he was horrifically abused and mistreated as a child in an orphanage in New York,
Yeah.
uh, in like the 18 whatevers.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, horrible, horrible person who, yeah, for some reason people kept being like, yeah, Mr. Fish, you can babysit my child. Oh God, they ate him.
Yeah.
He ate the baby. He
Yeah.
ate a lot of babies. Wrote a bunch of really horrible letters about how they tasted and how
Yeah.
he went about it. I'm not going to quote those.
Yeah.
If your fucked up self wants to go read them, they're on the internet.
Yeah.
Um,
That's definitely what comes to mind too, is like, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. The story about his neighbor or something. Like I think
yeah,
he kidnapped his
yeah.
neighbor's
The little
daughter.
girl, and
Yeah.
he wrote a letter about eating her succulent little ass.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which you said you weren't going to quote, and then you just
I
proceeded
wasn't gonna
to.
quote, and then I quoted it. Well, you know what? It's in my fucking brain, and if
I
it's
know
in
that's
my
what.
brain, it has to be in yours. Like you have to get it out, right?
Yeah,
Like,
like that's
yeah. I was like,
exactly.
I'm
Yeah.
probably not gonna talk about some of the stuff Richard Chase did, but I'm going to. Um,
Horrifying stuff.
yeah.
So
But before we get to him, Peter Curtin, the Vampire of Dusseldorf. Um, if you don't know anything about Peter Curtin,
I don't actually.
horrifying serial killer in Dusseldorf in the. Oh, I forgot to write it down.
We
World War II.
okay.
In between World Wars One and Two, kind of time period.
Okay.
Um, I think I
20s,
should probably
30s.
double check that. You know what? It was in the time where everything was shit, so it could have been now. I think it was like right around World War One and
Okay, we got the era. That's good.
whatever, whatever. There, people
Yeah.
are wearing hats. Um,
That actually is a good indicator. Like
right?
it really is.
You know, like it
And they're
sounded
not
really
flat bill
stupid as I
hats.
said it,
Like
but like,
that'll be like
yeah,
the like defining era. Like how like we think about like, oh, Abe Lincoln wearing top hats. Like
yeah,
100 years from now, it'd be like, yeah, and they wore these flat bill caps, or
yep.
they wore like just stupid hipster hats. But anywho,
Yeah, describing our beanies.
yeah.
Um, so the Vampire of Dusseldorf was responsible for 9 or more murders, some pretty horrific sexual assaults, and 31 attempted murders as well.
Oh Jesus.
He is one of the, what is I found interesting and horrifying and typical of people who seem to get labeled as vampires
Hmm.
is their inability to, and it's all men, it's always men, um, and it's their inability to ejaculate or get
Interesting.
an erection without blood involved.
Oh,
And usually something happens in like child, the way you get all your kinks is something happens in childhood and you associate it with sexy times,
yeah.
um, or adolescence, that kind of a thing. So for like Peter Curtin, Albert Fish, Richard Chase, Andre Chikatilo, like a lot of these other ones who've been labeled vampires of such and such, um, yeah, sexual gratification was not, they weren't able to achieve it without blood and murder. But
Wow.
mostly the drinking of the blood, it seemed like, was Peter Curtin's kind of deal. He likes to heads up warnings, people. I don't know if I
Yeah, it's
should.
real graphic.
Yeah, is this a is should we have put it at the beginning of me before?
We can put
I
it
mean, I
in
already
the
went into Albert
description.
Fish
Yeah, we'll
before
put it.
saying, just so you know, this is the horrible shit that's in my brain this week. So welcome to my
Yep.
nightmare.
We'll put in the little
Yeah.
caption.
So Peter Curtin, he enjoyed slitting throats and playing in his victims' blood. He started off being fairly fond of murdering children,
Okay.
almost always young girls. Not always, like he had a actually had a pretty wide range as far as his victim pool went, which like is kind of uncommon. Like he would bounce from children to adolescents to like young adults to elderly. I think he even murdered a couple of men. Um, but he drinking his victim's blood was a big deal to him. Eviscerating and getting his hands on the organs, that was a big deal for him. Um, he, in 1929, attacked an elderly woman with a pair of scissors, and he stabbed her like 87 times. Like, I saw a picture of the scissors. Don't look these things up, you guys. Don't do it. They're the biggest fucking scissors I've ever seen in my life.
Like ribbon ceremony scissors?
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, are you serious? Like the big ones?
They're not shears, like they're the smallest things that could still be considered scissors.
Oh, okay.
Like
Ooh.
tailoring scissors.
Whoa.
Um, yeah, horrific. And then he ate a lot of her. Um, yeah, so
Woof.
that's really fun. He was caught.
Yeah, when?
I had to stop writing it down.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's
I got
that's
upset after
gnarly.
it for a while. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard of him.
Oh my god, dude! Like, he's somebody, like, I could do a whole fucking. We could do a whole episode on Peter Curtin. Like, he's insane. Like, it would be a very, very much a what the last podcast on the Left Boys call a gold star episode. Um,
Does that mean
and
like a lot of gore?
that means this is gonna fuck you up
Oh,
in your
okay.
brain, and this is her horrifying. Gold
No.
star, gold star. Like Catherine Knight, gold star. Jesus Christ, gold star. Um, Richard Chase, the vampire
Yeah.
in Sacramento.
Yes. Always Sacramento. It's the grossest story. This one's
He
pretty
this,
bad.
this is horrifying. So this poor guy, Richard Chase, like, he was a fairly regular kid and adolescent. Like, he was remembered by his high school peers as being, cute, studious, nerdy, sweet. He had some girlfriends, that kind of thing. Nothing crazy, nothing dark and creepy. But he was. Not everybody with schizophrenia becomes this way. Like, that is simply not the case. That's like a terrible stereotype about people who are schizophrenic, that they're violent and murderous. And that is simply not true. More likely to be the victim of a crime than to perpetrate a violent crime.
Yeah.
However, Richard Chase had schizophrenia. Um, and he had some sort of a weird issue, syndrome, whatever. He thought that his blood was turning into dust, and that his organs were like turning inside out and like upside down, and like that there was something wrong with his blood, and that the
Hmm.
only way that he could get his blood better was to drink blood. So it started off with cats. Go
Oof.
away, Hemingway. He eviscerated a lot of cats,
Oof.
played around in their guts and stuff like that.
Gross.
And that was when he realized that he could achieve sexual gratification from that act.
Oh.
So, the neighborhood cats disappeared, and like he would go to the pet store and buy rabbits,
Mm-hmm.
and he would drink the rabbit's blood,
Oof.
and he started injecting himself with the rabbit's blood, because he was concerned that just drinking it wasn't getting it into his bloodstream, that was turning into dust, and like,
Yeah.
ugh, fuck. And so his parents were like, oh no,
Yeah.
oh no. Um, and then they had him committed, which is gonna sound like, that sounds like the right thing to do, but
Yeah.
just wait till you find out what they do and he gets out. So while he was in there, he terrified, like, he's like in his 20s at this point, and he went from being, like I said, in like a high school, like a well-rounded, like, fairly, if it's a teenager, I'm
Yeah.
sure, total fucking creep in his own way, but what teenage boy isn't?
Yeah.
Um, to being like this person that all of the staff at the hospital were terrified of.
Yeah.
They called him Dracula because he would capture birds in his room and eat them.
Hmm.
And they were just horrified of this guy. Like, he wasn't actually taking his meds. I think he like tried to stockpile. Um, like, he definitely wasn't doing well, and somehow was deemed not a danger to society. What the fuck? What the fuck? That doctor should be fired. And he was released to his parents' custody, and they were like, he needs to stay with you, and he needs to stay on his meds.
Yeah.
And so they took him off of his meds and then they got him an apartment.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a bad idea. And in this apartment, he got a couple of roommates, and the roommates were like, dude, Richard, what the fuck? Because he was always naked and he would never take a bath. And he was always covered in some sort of an animal blood. And his bedroom was a horrifying, just pit of despair. And they were like, you gotta move out, dude. You gotta move the fuck out. And he was like, no, I don't actually. And they're like, cool. And then all of his roommates left.
Yeah.
So that's a big sign.
Yeah.
And then one day, Richard snapped. His brain, like it finally dawned on him that he needed not just animal blood, but human blood. And he wandered the streets of a neighborhood and he started trying doors and windows. And any house that was locked was locked. Lock your fucking doors. Any house that was locked was like, it was like vampire rules. He wasn't allowed in. Anything that was unlocked, he was invited into. And when he went into that home, he then murdered everyone inside. He murdered a pregnant woman
Yeah.
because her door was unlocked. He went in and eviscerated her pretty like horrifically, and yeah, consumed a large portion of her blood and body. And
We don't need to talk about that. We can gloss over that one.
we'll gloss over that too, but he did eat it. And then he moved on down to the next street. And yeah, basically, if you want to keep looking up more information about like the details of what he did, by all means, you go for it. I just had to get that one out of my brain and just
Oh,
into the universe so I could not have to think about it anymore tonight. But yeah,
yeah. He eventually
uh,
got caught,
he was
right?
caught. He was caught in the craziest fucking way because he went covered in fucking blood and gore, and barefoot into the Town and Country Mall in Sacramento. It's like this open air mall, like you probably are aware of it. It's still there. Um, he walked in, he went into the store, and he saw this girl that he knew from high school in there. Like she was working at the store, and he's just covered in gore,
Yeah.
covered in it, and barefoot, which is also upsetting. Um, and just starts like kind of casually chatting with her, like, "Oh, hey, what's up? It's me, Ricky Chase from high school. Dude, you were in my whatever." And he said something like her boyfriend in high school had died in a on a motorcycle accident, and he said something weird like, "Were you on the bike? Were you on the back of the bike when Johnny died?"
Yeah.
She was like, haha, "Okay, nice seeing you, Rich." Uh, and then she just fucking left, like
Did he
left
just
the
ask her
shop.
for a ride?
Yeah, he followed her out to her car, and was like, "Hey, can I have a ride? Can I get a ride? Can I get a ride from you? Can I get a ride?" And she was like, "Nah," and just drove the fuck away, like to the police station, and was like, "This just happened. It
Yeah.
was this kid, Richard Chase," and like they were like dealing with the murders that had happened, and we're like, "Oh, maybe we should look into that shit." And then
Yeah.
they went to his apartment, which was just a horror show nightmare fest of body parts and blenders.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was arrested. He was somehow found competent to stand trial.
Yeah.
Um, I don't understand that one. I feel like that's somebody who, but just wandering down the streets covered in gore and like just like that, it shows a clear, like to me, that's pretty clear.
Yeah, you had
Not
like a mental
competent.
snap, right?
Yeah,
Like you're
not mentally
there's
competent.
something that's wrong there. It's
Yeah,
beyond um
yeah,
yeah.
it's beyond. It's just completely beyond. Um, did you just drop your mic?
Yeah, I just caught it though. Oh.
Nice, good for you. Yeah, so he I believe committed suicide in prison, saving up all of his antidepressants and then just taking them at once.
Damn.
Which
That's
good
sad.
for you, bud.
I mean, but he had to live with that. I mean, I would assume that if he was in prison, he probably was put on meds, and once he became
Yeah,
competent,
I think he
you
was more
know.
upset that he couldn't get to the blood.
Really?
He kept thinking that his body was turning back into like he really thought that his body was turning into dust and disintegration.
Yeah. I mean, that's just really sad. Like, I mean, obviously what he did was horrific and all of that and doesn't excuse it,
Oh
but
no, it's it.
I mean, man, I gotta like feel bad for someone who is that far gone that they can't touch down to reality at all.
Yeah, it's horribly depressing. It didn't help that he was just chowing acid.
Oh yeah, that yeah.
Yeah, a lot of acid. Too much acid. Too much
Acid
acid.
and schizophrenia, not a good combo.
It's not a good combination. It's
Yeah.
not at all. It's very dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's what I have for vampires.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. I love it. I think it's a really interesting topic that it's really glamorized. Um,
Mhm.
especially with Twilight, which
I
I
yeah,
mean, that's just so
I read
that's
all of the Twilight books. I was obsessed with vampires and I was the right age for it, but like
Twilight's just about the Book of Mormon. It's like a fucking
I know
what is it
those
called?
ones like I read those when I was 20. That
Mm,
was the year that I got into that book. Like I think they came out when I was like 18 or 19. But I read them all like the year the last one came out and just devoured them. But it was like eating a bag full of Sonic burger. Like afterwards I felt gross and I was like, this just it wasn't good. That
yeah.
wasn't good.
Yeah, I read
Um
all of them very quickly
yeah.
and I
Interview with
mean
the Vampire I read at probably too young of an age.
oh yeah,
Um
never read the book. Watch the movie. Love the movie.
Love the movie.
Love the
Love
movie.
that movie. Yeah, I read that when I was in like the sixth grade or something. Um, Read all of those ones. They're really good. There's a
That
lot of
does seem too young. That
it's too
seems
young. It was too young. Yeah, I was younger than Claudia
yeah.
when she
So,
was turned into a vampire. So definitely, my parents had a lot of books
huh,
that were around, and when I was reading a book, I was not bothering anyone.
true. This is true.
So
Yeah.
it's also how I ended up reading Outlander in the eighth grade, um,
I
which I
stuck
should not have been doing.
yeah. You had a lot of guts. I feel like I stuck to like the teen section. I don't know. Like I've read some stuff that's questionable for teens that's still
Yeah,
classified as teen stuff.
yeah, I read don't get me wrong, like I read a lot of like young adult and teen books in there too,
Yeah.
for sure. But yeah, Clan of the Cave Bear. Um, there's a lot of cavemen fucking in that one.
What's the
A
one
lot.
romance novel series that we used to both read that you got me
Oh, the
into?
Kresley Cole, The
Yeah.
Immortals After Dark. That's
Immortals
it.
After Dark.
It's a little bit cis het for me now, but
Yeah.
I like it. There's some good fuck scenes in this one. Sorry, Dad. Um, but they're
uh,
good. They're good paranormal romance stories. But yeah, like I was definitely reading Anne Rice at an early age. Definitely got really into the whole concept of being a vampire and like the dark blood power.
yeah. Yeah.
Um,
The like romantic side,
but
right? The
absolutely like the romantic side, the emo edge lord kind of
yeah.
shit of it all. Yeah, but
Like
I
the original like where the novel or whatever Dracula was originally conceived, like the whole
yeah
Lord Byron and Mary Shelley and Percy Shelley all in Geneva.
yeah fucking
Yeah, and
um
then wrote their horror stories and like
yeah.
I mean, it kind of makes sense that like Dracula, like that's a strong
And that was the winter. That was the longest winter. That was like the year without a summer or whatever it
correct.
was.
Yeah, I think it
When
was
like
like
didn't like a volcano
1816. Yeah. It was a
happen?
volcano.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Iceland or some shit.
Yeah.
Um,
See, I know
yeah,
history sometimes.
yeah, you do. Good for you. Sometimes you're smart.
Yeah, sometimes.
No, you're always smart.
We all have our moments, right? That's okay.
Yeah. But yeah, this I love all concepts of vampires. I love learning about because it's like this great taboo,
Yeah,
is to
definitely.
feast off of like the blood or life energy of something else. Yeah.
Yeah. Makes you
Uh,
wonder, right? Like if there is actually anything like out there.
you like Lestat?
Yeah.
I would love that.
Yeah. I mean, but like
I don't
would
think
you
I would.
though?
I
I feel
This
like if
is
he met you, he
60-year-old.
would murder you.
Yeah.
So
Um,
that I mean, that's the thing. It's like we
Right,
romanticize
no,
them, but
right,
at the end of
right.
the day, they're predators. So
Yeah, exactly. It's
if
the
they're
super
real,
predator, and
so
like, yeah. And that's kind of what's so sexy about it, though, is the danger of it. Of like, this is something that could kill you, or will kill you, wants to kill you, needs to kill you, even. That's why vampire stories are so fucking hot. Um, yeah.
yeah, it's true. That is
But
true.
also, I love
Bite me,
Lestat.
Edward. Bite me.
No, I like Lestat and Louis. I
Yeah.
love those ones.
Yeah.
I really, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Louis is really whiny though.
He is Louis. Wait,
Louis,
that's Brad
Louis,
Pitt's character, right?
yes,
Oh,
yeah.
I like Louis. That's probably because it's Brad Pitt. But
And
that's the whole thing
I,
is Louis he's the conscience, right?
he's the regretful vampire.
It's
Oh,
like Sam and Dean, right? It's like technically
yeah,
Louis is like Sam.
yeah, and Lestat,
He's the conscience that
yeah.
I think feel like every
I,
story has that
I
dynamic.
know how, I was going to say, I know how storytelling works, Megan.
Do you? Which one of us
Kind
is
of,
the
yes.
conscience?
Neither. We're both fucked.
And on
Nicholas.
that, like, just,
Yeah,
uh,
Nicholas is the conscience.
yeah, probably. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, other than babbling about how much I like Lestat, um, that's all I have for this week. Next week, I think we're gonna get into some more fun, creepy, creep factor kind of things, and then yeah, we got some fun plans for this summer for our summer series that's coming up. Um, yeah, good times.
it'll be
Got a
fun.
couple of two-parters in the pipe, ready to go. Um,
Gross.
Stop. I'm
You
sorry.
did that motion.
As I did it,
You
I
can't do the
realized
jerk off motion and go,
I
it's in
didn't
the
mean
pipe.
to. It was supposed to
Like,
be an explosion of like excitement, and it wasn't.
it was an explosion of excitement. Like, come on, these are just back to back innuendos. I feel like Michael Scott. Uh, anywho,
Anywho, follow us
yes.
on Instagram at Tin Hat Time Podcast. Listen to us on Apple Podcast, Spotify Podcast, Anchor, Google Podcasts, and please, please, God, we want you to rate, review, and subscribe. Just click a button. Just takes 2 seconds. Just
Yeah.
fucking do it.
And if you have any interesting stories to tell us, anything that relates, whatever you want to send us, please send us a story at tinhattimepodcast@gmail.com or slide into Hannah's DMs on Insta.
Slide on in there. Yeah. I'm always checking them.
Yeah. So,
Hopeful and sad.
yeah. Oh,
So
and
slide in.
thank
Um,
you to everyone for being patient with last week not having a podcast. We had some
yep.
finals and
Finals
appreciate
week
everybody.
and mental health break week.
Yeah.
It's important that we all take our mental health seriously. So,
Yeah.
be
As we
kind to
just
yourself,
learned in the
take your
last
meds.
few cases. So mental health
Yeah,
is important.
no shit, right?
Yeah.
Take your meds, people. If you think that your blood is turning into dust, it isn't, I assure you. Continue to take your medication and go see your prescribed healthcare professional, for God's sake. Don't.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm done. Rate, review, subscribe.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.